Volunteer Queensland. How many of you guys volunteered during the floods and registered online? Okay, most of the Queenslanders.
Okay, I think Volunteer in Queensland, a lot of you might be familiar with some parts of our story. A lot of you know that our website crashed quite significantly in the first couple of days. I think our story, we were very prepared for it in some ways and very unprepared for it in other ways. So I think it's important to explain that Volunteer in Queensland actually has 6 online portals. One is the two which I'm going to tell you about is the main Volunteer in Queensland website, which is where people first went to register during the Brisbane floods. And then the second one, which is the emergency volunteering portal, which I now manage. So this was in the works already, but hadn't been launched yet, and was very quickly launched in a low bandwidth version with just the registration page, which subsequently crashed. We had over 160,000 unique site visits within a couple of days or a week. So it was quite significant traffic, unexpected in that aspect. We scrambled. I don't know too much about how we got servers, but we got them internationally. We got them from there everywhere. What else did we do? So I guess from a social media point of view, we just use Twitter at the moment. We're going to be moving into the Facebook arena soon, I think. With the emergency volunteering portal, I get a bit more freedom because it's a little bit less traditional than the main Volunteer in Queensland website. So that's why we haven't exactly gone into social media earlier. Unlike Ergon and maybe QPS, I'm the only one who manages our social media with one other person who manages the VQ stuff. So we're quite a limited team in our capacity at the moment. During the floods, I don't think we did Twitter too much during the floods. We picked it up towards the end, and towards Yassi, we tweeted quite a lot. One of the main requirements for us was, I kind of saw our role just to get information out there, so we retweeted QPS and Ergon quite a bit. We thought it was important information. Regarding the volunteering side of everything, the way our systems are set up is that Volunteer in Queensland is not in charge of volunteering across the board, across the state. We kind of manage key relationships with key natural disaster response agencies. So one of our roles is to register people to volunteer, and when our agencies have volunteer requirements, we match that with our database. Now, luckily for us, a lot of people referred people to our registration page. Unluckily, I think there was not a lot of clarity around our role and managing people's expectations, which was difficult and an opportunity at the same time, looking at the risk and the opportunity that Ergon mentioned earlier. I think that volunteering, although it was a lot of, I'm just rambling now, aren't I?
You're doing great. You're doing great. How many people did come to your website, Kat, during the floods?
I need questions. We had, like I said, about 160,000 people within a couple of days or 2 weeks. We had over 80,000 registrations, which takes about 3 minutes to fill out the form. So on average, people on there for 3 minutes. 80,000 registrations. Large majority were for people interested in volunteering. Small level people who wanted to make donations or who needed assistance as well. We took those requests and tried to pass them off as we could. We already had the process in place, like our core business at Volunteer in Queensland is matching opportunities with volunteer ones. However, in the short time frame, that wasn't necessarily our role or our capacity, which I think was not managed very well as well.
How would you describe your role at Volunteer Queensland? You got sort of 80,000 people to register as volunteers. What do you think was your role to do with that information and communicate back to those volunteers?
Officially, our role during a disaster is to fulfil the needs of the natural disaster response agencies. So we partner with the Red Cross, we partner with ISPCA, Lifeline, St Vinny's, and we pass our registrations into their requirement needs. Also, we see that there's kind of like a twin peak we find with volunteering. It's quite a challenge in crisis response in that initially their output, the people who want to volunteer are quite high, but the opportunities are quite low because it takes time for agencies to develop a really effective volunteer response. And so now we're finally, a lot of agencies have high volunteer requirements, but the people who are offering assistance isn't as high as it was directly preceding the floods.
How do people know to go to your website?
That was interesting. We used, a lot of people referred to us through traditional media, a lot of people through Facebook and Twitter found out about us. We actually had 61% of the traffic who came to our site knew exactly where to go. It was direct traffic, which is fascinating. And that was for the emergency volunteering portal, which had only launched as the floods happened. So that I think a lot of that came through the ABC, through the Brisbane City Council, people registered, through other Facebook sites.
And what would you say was the biggest challenge that you faced during the crisis situation with managing your communication online?
I think it was challenging and it was just me. And I was the first couple of days because my house flooded. So I wasn't there to manage that side of things. And while there's a lot of support within my organisation, there's not a lot of capacity in terms of social media. Sarah Moran, who's in the audience, I think was there as well. She was helping drive our social media and online platforms. I think it's something that we're building into and we're growing into.
Okay. All right. I've got some more questions to Kat about the phase that they're in now, but we'll come back to that. Graeme, would you mind giving us a bit of an explanation of your story? Queensland Floods set up their website as just a community initiative.
Flood.
Yeah, sorry, Flood Aid. Queensland Floods is Tim. I get them confused, and I actually think that's an issue, is that I get them confused, because I was right on this during the situation, and I think it's fantastic that these two groups set up these two fantastic sites, which were very helpful to the community. But yeah, I'd like to hear your story about how that all started and how you guys coordinated with each other.
Right. So Flood Aid was sort of born out of your site crashing. So we figured that there was nowhere for anyone to go to there was no decent website that had proper information that could connect people. There was a lot of just people sending information out and sending information in, but there was didn't make sense. No one kind of understands the flows of information online. And so we just came up initially with an iPhone app called Floodwatch that was going to be, you take a photo of rising flood water or road closures, that sort of thing, and it went to a database, and you could then go onto Google Maps and plot out the route that you wanted to go. So I want to go from, New Farm to the Gap, and it'll tell you what roads are closed on the way, where the flood waters are rising, and pictures and that sort of thing. Generate a community around that. We scoped it out, designed it, and sent it off to get developers, phoned Apple to see if that's right or bone, and they didn't. So usually it takes 5 days to like 6 weeks to get an app online. So we just couldn't, 5 days wasn't timely. So figured, well, what about some sort of Craigslist type thing where connecting people in need to people that could help? That was the basis of the idea. We thought, cool, that's alright, sweet. So what I do for my day job is basically create groundswell movements around brands and companies and that sort of thing. So I sort of like to use social media to get people interested in things. So I just took those skills and we created, me and Adam, and then went back to his house, and there's another guy called Adrian. We put together a project brief that outlined what it was we wanted to do, what we needed to make it happen. Sent it out to the creative communities, because it's worldwide. A lot of people were unaffected by the flood, sitting back going, like, what do I do? Well, it's like web dev guys, designers, that sort of thing. Sent it out with like a bit of a wing and a prayer. And then woke up the next day. This was on Tuesday. Woke up Wednesday morning and I had like 40 emails in my inbox. People wanting to help. And I was like, well, okay, this is real. So didn't really notice at that point quite how big it was getting online. What had happened is when we sent out the campaign brief, I just loaded it onto the back of my blog and sent out a link to people that I knew on Facebook, emailed to my contacts, and tweeted it to I think the 27 followers I had. And then not thinking it would go too far, thinking maybe Brisbane people would get involved. Turned out it kind of went a little bit viral actually, and we got about, within the next 12 hours, 500 responses. So from around the world, that was every continent basically, except Antarctica. And then we built a team of, I think it was about 15 to 20 from 5 countries by that evening, and had the site designed. Had it designed and then sent it off to the guys to develop. Never met the team, just to say, I think there's about 50 people worked on it. I've met 5, if that, 6. Don't even know who there is. I can't even remember who the people were. Anyway, created this little movement around this idea of connecting people in need to people that could help. and then assembled a team of people that the dev guys own the dev, the design guys own the design, the marketing people own that, the media guys own, and my role became just guiding the content, keeping it interesting, and that's kind of where my role comes in my day job.
And where did you get your information from? What were your key sources?
What do you mean?
Well, of information for the site.
Well,
how would you describe the purpose of the site?
Well, I mean, the purpose of the site is very, very simple. It is just connecting people in need to people that can help, I'm not really sure how to answer that question, but the way that I got to that point of kind of explaining in that way is a lot of what I do, and a lot of what I find the use of social media is to use it as a billboard to, create a movement.
So when people came to your site, what did they have to do?
When the site was built, so we got to that point where the site was built. Okay, when the site was built, you log on. Either you have to register. I went through a bit of a legal thing, asking the right questions and all that, because I didn't know. I'd never done it before, so we got a lawyer to volunteer his time and created terms and conditions and kind of worked out the risks involved with people's personal information, that sort of thing. So you logged on. It was pretty informal. You just email address and your location, your suburb, all that sort of stuff, and then offered either posted up. I'm offering people offered like puppies. One person said, if you've lost your pet, which is quite sad, kind of brought a tear to my eye. I just had 4 purebred puppies. I can't remember what breed it was. I think they were. I call them sheepdogs. I don't know what you call them, cattle. I'm from South Africa, sorry. But yeah, it's like people it just went nuts. I don't really know how to answer your question.
Do you know how many hits you had to your website?
It's very timely, but in the first 5 days, we had about 30,000. Yeah, quite a lot. But there's a lot of media. This was the thing that I was behind, and what I need to explain to everyone is, I'm not like the tech guy that went and did the back end of the website. I have no idea how it was built. Some guys in Sydney from Morgan Creative, who are nice guys, Mario and Grant. They did it. The design was done by the guy who works for me in South Africa. He did all the design. So I can't really, I'm probably going to be really bad at answering points of questions.
It's still amazing what you got up and running. I think there's definitely a story to tell with just the initiative and how quickly they were able to mobilise. Do you have a nice success story you can finish on, like a way that you connected some people using the site?
Drift Restaurant, I'm sure you all know that one. That got gutted and they cleaned pretty much the whole place through. They were one of the first people to kind of adopt the site, and they had tons.
So they asked for volunteers to come and help?
Yeah, and I think they filled up 2 weeks worth of volunteers in an afternoon just through the site. But just quickly to end it off, what I think my role was in Flood Aid, and maybe if you could ask questions around what I did, then it would be a lot easier and you get better answers, is I focused on, just being honest, I really focused on creating the movement around the website. So dev guys do dev stuff, design guys do design stuff, marketing people do marketing things. The real key and the kicker for me with social media is how to create movement using it, and that's what I know how to do. So if you got any questions around that, please ask.
So you used social media to drive traffic to the site?
Yeah, a lot of and then it was basic social media management. So someone posts up, I got puppies, someone else posts up, I need some, this person has puppies and this person needs a house. And quite a few people actually found houses, which is quite...
And you would put the word out through Twitter and
Facebook, yeah. We built up, I think, 600 on Twitter and 1,000 on Facebook, but it was really like hectic engagement. People really engaged, which is